The Bloody Battle, 15 seconds each. Chapter 6. It was early the next morning that Dan's disappearance came to light. Wary as she was from her deadly battle the previous night, and from staying up almost all night, preparing for the camp's attack, Doris failed to notice her younger brother racing out to the prairie at the crack of dawn. Having told Dee the details of her run-in with Ray Ginsey and his gang, Doris had decided to go see the sheriff today to inform him. Though Dan had been told not to leave the farm until they were ready to go into town, the boy was just bursting at the seams with energy. Apparently he'd switched off the barrier and gone out alone with a laser rifle to hunt some mist devils. Fog-like monsters that slipped in with the morning mist, the creatures were a nuisance on the frontier mainly because they had a propensity for dissolving their way through crops and the hides of farm animals. They didn't fare well against heat, however, and a blast from a laser beam was enough to destroy them. Being rather sluggish, they posed little threat to an armed boy used to dealing with them. Hunting mist devils was really Dan's specialty. Soon after she awoke, Doris realized her brother wasn't on the farm. She raced frantically to the weapons storeroom and saw that he'd taken his rifle, which let her relax for a moment. But when she ran outside to call him back in, she froze in her tracks at the entrance to the farm. His laser rifle had been left as a paperweight on a single sheet of paper that was lying on the ground, right in front of the gate. The following words were written on the page in elegant lettering. Your brother is coming with us. The Hunter D is to come alone at 6 o'clock evening to the region of ruins where we met the other day. Our goal is simply to ascertain which hunter has the superior skills, and nothing more. We have no need of observers, not even you, Doris. Until this test of skill has been decided, you are to mention this to no one. If you deviate from the above conditions in the least, a sweet little 8-year-old will burn in the fires of hell. Ray Ginsey. Doris felt every ounce of strength drained from her body as she returned to the house. She was still trying to decide whether or not she should show the letter to Dee when Dee noticed all was not right with her. Trapped in the gaze of his lustrous eyes, Doris finally showed him the letter. Well, half of it is true at least, Dee said, as if the matter didn't concern him in the least, though it was quite clear he was being challenged to a duel. Half of it? If he just wanted to face off against me, all he had to do was come here and say so. Since he took Dan, he must have another aim, to separate the two of us. The Count is behind this. But why would he have gone to all that trouble? It'd be a lot faster and easier if he'd said I was the one who had to come alone. One reason is because the author of this letter wants to settle a score with me. The other... what would that be? Using a child to get you would reflect poorly on the honor of the nobility. Doris's eyes blazed with fury. But he really is using Dan to... Most likely his abduction is the only part of the plan Ray Ginsey and his gang came up with. The honor of the nobility. Don't make me laugh. Even if it wasn't his idea, if he approves of it, it's the same damn thing. Nobility my ass. They're nothing but blood-sucking monsters. After she spat the words like a gout of flame, Doris was shocked at herself. I'm sorry. You're not like that at all. That was a rotten thing for me to say. Tears quickly welled in her eyes, and Doris broke down crying on the spot. The recoil from putting all her violent emotions into words had just hit her. Her situation was grim, with one misfortune after another piling onto her as if she was possessed by some evil spirit that drew all these calamities to her. In reality, it was amazing she hadn't surrendered to tears long before now. As weeping shook her pale shoulders, a cool hand came to rest on them. We can't have you forgetting you hired a bodyguard. Even with the present state of affairs, Dee's voice remained soft. But within the coolly composed ring of his words, the ears of Doris's heart clearly heard another voice propped up by unshakable assurance. And this is what it seemed to say. I promise to protect you and Dan, and you can be certain I will. Doris raised her face. Right before her eyes was the face of an elegant, valiant young man gazing quietly at her. It felt as something hot fell onto her full bosom. Hold me, she sobbed, throwing herself against Dee's chest. I don't care what happens. Just hold me tight. Don't let me go. Gently resting his hands on the sob-racked shoulders of the 17-year-old girl, Dee gazed out the window at the blue expanse of sky and the prairie filling with morning's life. What was he thinking about? The safety of the boy? His 4 foes? The Count? Or something else? The emotional hue that filled his eyes remained a single shade of cold, clear black. Before long, Doris pulled back from him. With a spent, sublime expression, she said, I'm sorry. That wasn't exactly in character for me. It's just, I suddenly got the feeling you might stay here with me forever. But that's not right. When your job's done, you'll be moving on, won't you? Dee said nothing. This is almost over. Something tells me that. But what are you going to do about Dan? I'll go, of course. I have to. Can you take them? I'll bring Dan back, safe and sound. Please, see that you do. I feel awful making you look out for him, but I think I'm going to head into town to hole up. I'll have Doc Fringo put me up at his place. You know, he saved me the night before last. I'm sure he'll be fine this time, too. Doris still didn't know that the real reason the Count had run off was the protective charm Dee had placed on her neck. And most likely the reason Dee said nothing when the girl told him she was going to the physician's home was because he knew he couldn't guarantee that the charm would ward off someone with the Count's power forever. When the angle of the sunlight spearing through the window became sharp, the two of them got on their horses and left the farm. Regardless of what Dee had said, Doris's expression remained dark. If anyone can bring back Dan, he can. She had no trouble making herself believe this, but she remembered how powerful his enemies were. She could still hear the shrike blade screaming up behind her in the ruins. The horrid sight of her horse falling over with all 4 legs cut off was burned deep into her eyelids. Now there were 4 such fiends out there. A dark spot of despair remained in Doris's heart. What's more, even if Dee made it back alive, if the Count were to strike while Dee was gone, there was no way she could escape him this time. She said nothing about it to Dee, but she still wasn't entirely sure going to Dr. Fringo's was the right thing to do. On entering town, countless eyes focused on the pair as they rode down the main street. The looks were colored more by fear than by hate. For people on the frontier, who lived surrounded by dark forests and monsters, a girl who'd been preyed on by a vampire and a young man with vampire blood in his veins were beyond the normal level of revulsion. Thanks to Greco, everyone had heard what had happened. A little girl who seemed to recognize Doris said, "Oh, hi," and started to approach, but her mother wasted no time in pulling her back. Among the men, There were some whose faces showed the urge to kill, and they reached for swords or guns the second they saw D. Not because they'd been told what he was, but rather because of the eerie aura that hung about him. All the women, however, looked like they would swoon as they watched him go by, and given how beautiful he was, that came as a little surprise. And yet, the pair made their way down the street without a single hothead running out to stop them, and finally they arrived at a house with the sign, Dr. Fringo, hanging from the eaves. Doris got down off her horse and rang the bell, and presently the woman from next door, who acted as a nurse and watched the place while Doc was out, answered. Apparently ignorant of Doris's situation, she smiled and stated, "Doc's been out since this morning. It seems there was someone out at Harker Lane's house that needed urgent care, and he went off to see him. He left a note saying he'd be back around noon. But where he's still not back yet, he may be dealing with something serious. You know, the lady of the house out there is apt to put anything in season into her mouth, and even if it's a numbleberry or a topsy-turvy toadstool." Lane was a huntsman, and his home was out in the middle of the woods, 2 hours of hard riding from town. "I hate it when this happens. On my own I can't do much besides treat scrapes, and hand out sedatives. But since everyone always says that's good enough, I've been running myself ragged all morning. Why don't you come in and wait? I'm sure Doc will be back soon, and if you're willing, I could sure use the help." Uncertain about what to do, Doris looked to D. Sitting on his horse, he gave her the slightest nod. She decided, giving a bow to the housewife, who was watching D with starry eyes, and Doris said, "It looks like I'll be in your hair until Doc gets back then." She sounded a little tense, but that was unavoidable. While she thought D would come with her, as soon as he saw she'd made up her mind, he started to ride off slowly. "Dear me, isn't he with you?" the woman asked Doris excitedly. She didn't even try to hide her disappointment. At that point, before Doris could get angry at the thought of a woman of the nurse's age getting all worked up about D, she was sharing the woman's confusion. "Hold on, where are you headed?" "Just taking a look around the perimeter." "It's still midday. There's not going to be anything out. Stay with me. I'll be back soon." D let his horse go on without once looking back. First part, end.